How do you feel when the people you trust most betray you? This is the question that haunts the woman whose story I'm about to share. A woman who once believed her life was perfect, with a loving husband and 2 beautiful children. But when her sister moved in, bringing a devastating secret, everything changed. Join me as we explore her journey through heartbreak and resilience. My name is Anita, and I was married once. Yes, I had a husband, a successful man too. And we had 2 beautiful children together, a boy and a girl. We lived in the city, far from the village where I grew up. Our life was what people dream of. A big house, cars, vacations. It was everything I thought I wanted. I loved my husband. I thought he loved me too. At least that's what he made me believe for years. Our children were the light of my life, and I was proud of the family we had built together. I thought I had it all: a loving husband, a beautiful family, and a future that seemed secure. But, as I would soon find out, everything I thought I knew was a lie. It all started when my younger sister got into trouble. She got pregnant, unmarried, young, and scared. The man who was responsible for the pregnancy denied everything, so I was told, and she was left alone to raise a child. My parents were devastated, of course, but they didn't know what to do. We all felt ashamed, like she had ruined the family's name. My sister was broken, and as her older sister, I felt a responsibility to help her. When my parents asked me to take her in, I wasn't sure at first. I mean, I had my own family to take care of, and things were already busy enough. But they pleaded with me. It's just for a while, they said, just until she gets back on her feet. And I believed them. I thought it was the right thing to do, help my sister when she needed it most. So I talked to my husband and he agreed. I remember feeling so grateful to him at the time. He was always so supportive, or at least that's what I thought. He told me it would be fine, that we'd make room for her and her child in our home. He didn't even hesitate. So, my sister moved in with us, along with her little boy. He was about 5 years old, a bit younger than my 2 children, but they got along well. It felt good to have family around, and I thought we were all happy. My husband was generous. He treated my sister and her son as if they were his own. He bought things for her son the same way he did for our children: clothes, toys, everything. It was like they were part of our family, and I was proud of how well we were all getting along. But looking back, I realized that sometimes, when things seem too perfect, there's usually something hidden beneath the surface. Something you're not seeing until it's too late. I didn't see it coming. I never suspected a thing. You see, I was blind. Blind to what was really happening right under my nose. And the people I loved the most, the ones I trusted, were hiding a secret from me. A secret that would tear my world apart. But I'll get to that in time. For now, I just want you to understand that my life wasn't always like this. I wasn't always this guarded, this broken. I used to believe in love. I used to trust people. I used to think that family was everything. But all of that changed in one single moment. One conversation shattered everything I thought I knew. I wasn't always like this, you know? I used to be different. I used to be full of life, full of hope. I used to believe in love the way children believe in fairy tales. But life has a way of showing you that fairy tales aren't real. Back then, I had everything I thought I wanted: a beautiful home in the city, 2 wonderful children, and a husband who was successful and kind, or at least I thought he was. We lived the kind of life that people envy from the outside. You know the type. The big house with a garden, the nice cars parked out front, vacations at fancy resorts. We were the family everyone looked up to, the picture of happiness. My husband. I loved him. He was charming, hardworking, and I thought he was committed to our family. He provided for us in ways I couldn't have imagined growing up. I mean, I didn't come from money. My parents did their best, but we were always struggling. So when I married him, I felt like I had hit the jackpot, and I was determined to be the best wife I could be. We had 2 children, a boy and a girl. Our son Ifeanyi was the older one. He was smart, curious, and always asking questions about the world. He wanted to know everything: why the sky was blue, how cars worked, what made rain fall from the clouds. He was my little scientist. Our daughter Ada was the opposite. She was calm, quiet, always drawing or painting something. She had a gentle soul, and from a young age she loved music and art. They were my heartbeats, my reason for everything. My days were filled with taking care of them, making sure they had everything they needed. School runs, helping with homework, organizing birthday parties, all the little things that come with being a mother. And I didn't mind it at all. I loved being there for them. I loved our life. My husband worked long hours, but that was okay. I understood. He was providing for us, and I was grateful for all the sacrifices he made to give us the life we had. I didn't complain when he was late coming home, or when he had to travel for business. I trusted him completely. Maybe that was my mistake, trusting him too much. Everything changed the day my sister came into the picture. My younger sister, Neka, had always been a bit wild. She was the rebellious one, the one who didn't follow the rules. While I was settling down, getting married, and starting a family, Neka was out partying, chasing her own dreams, living her life the way she wanted. I didn't judge her for it. We were different, but she was still my sister. I loved her. But then she got into trouble. She got pregnant, and the man who was responsible denied everything. He abandoned her. I remember the phone call I got from my mother that day. She was crying, telling me how Neka had come home in tears, pregnant and alone. My heart broke for her. No one should have to go through something like that. My parents were devastated. They didn't know what to do. An unmarried pregnant woman in our culture was still seen as a disgrace, and my parents felt the weight of that shame. Neka had made a mistake, yes, but I didn't think she deserved to suffer for it. She was still so young, barely in her 20s, and I knew she needed help. That's when my parents asked me to take her in. Just for a while, they said. Just until she gets back on her feet. I hesitated at first. It wasn't that I didn't want to help her, I did. But I had my own family to think about. My children were still young, and things were already busy enough as it was. Could I really handle having my sister and her baby living with us? I wasn't sure. But then I thought about Neka, about how alone she must have felt, about how hard it would be for her to raise a child on her own, especially with no support from the father. I decided I couldn't turn my back on her. She was my sister after all. So I went to my husband and explained the situation. I'll never forget how kind he seemed at that moment. He listened carefully as I told him about Neka's predicament, and when I asked if she could stay with us, he didn't even hesitate. Of course, what he said. We'll help her. She's family. I remember feeling so grateful to him then. I thought, what a good man I married. He didn't just care about me and our children. He was willing to open his home to my sister and her child. It made me love him even more. So Neka moved in with us. She brought her son, Chukwudi, with her. A little boy, about 5 years old, just a bit younger than Ifeanyi and Ada. And for a while, everything seemed perfect. Neka was a wonderful aunt to my children, and her son fit right in with the family. Ifeanyi and Ada adored him. They treated him like their own little brother, and I was happy that they were all getting along so well. As for my husband, he treated Neka and Chukwudi like they were part of the family too. He bought things for Chukwudi, just like he did for our children. Clothes, toys, whatever our kids had, Chukwudi had as well. And Neka, well, she seemed to be adjusting to her new life. She was grateful, or at least I thought she was. Looking back now, I see how naive I was, how blind I was to the truth. But at the time I was happy. I thought I had done the right thing by helping my sister. I thought we were all one big, happy family. I didn't know that the very people I trusted, the people I loved, were keeping secrets from me. Secrets that would destroy everything I thought I knew. I didn't know that my perfect life was a lie. I thought we were doing well. I thought everything was falling into place, and we were living in harmony. You know, looking back, it's funny how blind I was. There were signs, small things that I chose to ignore, things that didn't seem important at the time. Little moments that I brushed off because I trusted my husband, my sister, my family. I believed they had my best interests at heart, but I was wrong. At first, everything seemed perfect. Neka settled into our home nicely, and Chukwudi quickly became part of our little family. Ifeanyi and Ada treated him like a younger sibling, and I was happy to see them bonding. It was almost as though we had added another child to our family. I remember how I would sometimes come home to find my husband playing with all three of them, laughing, joking, the picture of a loving father. It warmed my heart. I thought, what a blessing it is to have such a supportive husband, one who treats my sister's son like his own. I never imagined that there was something more to their connection. Neka seemed to be getting back on her feet. She helped around the house, took care of the kids, and even started looking for work. I was proud of her, proud of how she was handling everything. She had been through so much, and yet she was rebuilding her life. I admired her strength and resilience. She was my little sister after all, and I wanted nothing but the best for her. But there were moments when things felt off. My husband would be unusually attentive to Chukwudi, buying him gifts, spending extra time with him. I didn't think too much of it at first. After all, Chukwudi was just a child. He needed care and attention, just like Ifeanyi and Ada. But sometimes it felt like my husband was going out of his way for him, even more than he did for our own children. I would see them together, and a strange feeling would creep into my chest, an uneasiness I couldn't quite explain. But then I would shake it off. I told myself I was overthinking things. My husband was just being kind. He was just trying to make Chukwudi feel welcome. That's what I told myself. Then there was Neka. She had always been a bit secretive, but I didn't think much of it. She had been through a lot, and I figured she was still processing everything. But sometimes she would disappear for hours without telling me where she was going. Or I would walk into a room and find her deep in conversation with my husband, and they would stop talking the moment I entered. It happened more than once, but every time I asked, they would laugh it off. We were just talking about the kids, they'd say. You're imagining things. And I believed them. Why wouldn't I? They were my family, the people I loved. I had no reason to doubt them. But there was one day that stands out in my memory. One moment when I should have known something was wrong. I had come home early from running errands, and I walked into the living room to find my husband holding Chukwudi in his arms, smiling down at him with a look on his face that I couldn't quite place. It wasn't just affection. It was something deeper, almost paternal. I stood there watching them, and for the first time, I felt a knot of suspicion tighten in my stomach. It didn't make sense. Why would my husband look at Neka's son that way? I shook my head, trying to push the thought away, but the feeling wouldn't leave me. I asked him about it later that night, casually, not wanting to sound paranoid. You seem really close to Chukwudi, I said. Is there something you want to tell me? He laughed it off as he always did. Of course not, he said, wrapping his arms around me. He's just a sweet boy, and I feel bad for what Nick has been through, that's all. I wanted to believe him. I wanted so badly to trust him. So I did. I let it go, convinced that I was just being overly sensitive. But the truth was coming, and when it finally did, it hit me like a train. A truth that shattered everything I thought I knew. The day it all came crashing down started like any other. I had taken the kids to school and was running errands when my phone rang. It was my sister-in-law, my husband's younger sister, who lived in another part of the city. We weren't particularly close, but we had always been friendly with each other. She asked me to meet her for lunch. It seemed like an odd request. She had never asked me out like that before, but I agreed. I didn't think much of it at the time. Maybe she just wanted to catch up. I was wrong. When I arrived at the restaurant, she seemed nervous, almost as though she didn't know where to begin. We ordered food, but neither of us touched it. I could tell something was on her mind, something heavy. There's something I need to tell you, she said, her voice trembling. I've been holding this in for too long, and I can't keep it from you anymore. I'm sorry, but you need to know the truth. I remember feeling my heart start to race. What was she talking about? What could possibly be so important that she had to pull me aside like this? And then she told me, Chukwudi, he's not just Neka's son. He's your husband's son too. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It felt like the ground had opened up beneath me, like the world was spinning out of control. I stared at her, not believing what I was hearing. "No," I said, shaking my head. "That's impossible. That can't be true." But she just looked at me with sad eyes, and I knew, deep down, I knew it was true. "Your husband, he had an affair with Neka," she continued. "And when Neka got pregnant, the whole family found out. They had a meeting about it. Your parents, his parents, everyone knew. They all decided it was best to keep it a secret from you. Neka insisted on moving in with you so she could be close to her son's father. They thought it was the only way to keep the peace. I felt like I was going to be sick. My whole body was shaking, and I couldn't think straight. How could they do this to me? How could they betray me like this? My own husband, my own sister, and my parents too. They had all known. They had all lied to me. I left the restaurant in a daze, barely able to drive home. My mind was racing, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want it to be true, but I knew it was. When I got home, I confronted them both, my husband and Neka. I demanded to know the truth, and they didn't even try to deny it. My husband begged for forgiveness, saying it was the work of the devil. Yeah, the devil always sure gets the blame for every evil deed, that he had made a mistake and had been trying to make it right ever since. But Neka, she didn't show any remorse. She didn't even seem sorry. She just looked at me with cold eyes and said, "I did what I had to do." I felt like I had been stabbed in the heart. I stood there in my own living room, my heart shattered, my mind racing, staring at the two people I had loved and trusted most in this world, my husband and my sister. They didn't even try to deny it. My husband looked broken, regret etched into every line of his face, while my sister stood there, unmoved, with not a single ounce of remorse in her eyes. It felt like time had stopped, and the walls were closing in around me. I couldn't believe it. My husband, the man I had given my life to, had fathered my sister's child. And my own sister, the person I had taken in, cared for, sheltered when she was in need, she had betrayed me in the most unforgivable way. How could they? How could they live with this lie for so long, right under my nose? "It was a mistake," my husband said. "A mistake?" I repeated, my voice rising. "A mistake is one thing, but this is a lie that has lasted for years. You both let me live with this lie. I trusted you both." Neka just stood there, arms crossed, unbothered by the whole thing. She didn't care about my pain. She didn't care that she had destroyed me. I looked at her, and for the first time in my life, I felt something close to hatred for my own sister. "I did what I had to do," she said, her voice cold, distant. "I didn't have a choice." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. No choice? She had plenty of choices. She could have told the truth from the beginning. She could have stayed away from my family. But no, she chose to move into my house, to play happy families while hiding this massive betrayal. She had a choice, and she chose to lie. I couldn't stand to be in the same room with them any longer. I felt sick, dizzy, like I was about to collapse. My world was crumbling around me, and I didn't know what to do. I needed answers. I needed to know how deep this betrayal went. So I did the only thing I could think of. I went to confront my parents. I drove to my parents' house, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I kept replaying everything in my head, trying to make sense of it all, but none of it made sense. How could they have known? How could my own parents, the people who raised me, have been a part of this deception? When I arrived, my mother was in the kitchen, preparing dinner. She smiled when she saw me, but that smile faded the moment she saw the look on my face. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice full of concern. I couldn't hold back anymore. "You knew," I said, my voice breaking. "You knew about Neka and my husband. You knew Chukwudi was his son, and you didn't tell me." I'll never forget the way her face fell in that moment, the way the color drained from her cheeks, and her eyes filled with regret. "How could you?" I demanded, tears streaming down my face. "How could you let me live a lie for all these years?" She tried to explain, tried to make excuses. "We were trying to protect you," she said. "We didn't want to hurt you. Neka was so young, and your husband. We thought it was best to keep it quiet for the sake of the family. We didn't want to break up your marriage." "Protect me?" I shouted. "You weren't protecting me. You were protecting them. You were protecting their secret while letting me live in the dark like a fool." How could you betray me like this? How could you stand by and watch me take Neka into my home, knowing the truth? She cried then, real tears of regret, but it didn't matter. Her tears couldn't fix this. Nothing could fix this. The damage was done. My father came in at that moment, and I confronted him too. He admitted that he had known the whole time. They had all known, my parents, my in-laws, even some other relatives. They had all kept this secret from me, thinking it was for the best, thinking I wouldn't be able to handle the truth. I felt sick, betrayed by everyone I had trusted, everyone I had loved. My own family had turned against me. They had chosen to protect a lie, to protect my husband and my sister, instead of protecting me. You need to forgive, my father said, his voice calm, as if that would solve everything. What happened was a mistake, and it's in the past now. You can't let it destroy your family. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Forgive? How could I forgive this? How could I forgive the lies, the betrayal, the way they had all conspired to keep me in the dark? How could I forgive my sister for what she had done, for taking my husband and bringing her child into my home under false pretenses? I can't, I whispered, shaking my head. I can't forgive this. I left their house that night, and I never looked back. I couldn't. I was done. Done with the lies, the betrayal, the hurt. Leaving wasn't easy. In fact, it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Walking away from everything I had built, everything I had known, wasn't a decision I made lightly. But after the betrayal, after the lies, I couldn't stay. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay when my entire world had crumbled. I packed up what little we could carry, just the essentials. Clothes for the kids, a few toys, some photos. I didn't want to take too much. I wanted to leave as quickly as possible to get as far away from the city, from them, as I could. I didn't even tell anyone where I was going. I didn't want them to find me. I moved us to a small town far from the city. It was quiet, peaceful, nothing like the hustle and bustle of the life we had left behind. I thought it would be the perfect place to start over, a place where no one knew us, where we could begin to heal. But healing is harder than it sounds. At first, the kids didn't understand. They missed their father, missed their home. They asked me why we had to leave, why we couldn't go back. I tried to explain it to them as best as I could, without giving away too much. They were too young to understand the full truth. All they knew was that things had changed, and they weren't happy about it. I would hear Ifeanyi crying at night, asking for his father. Ada, too, would sometimes wake up in tears, wondering why we couldn't go back to the life we used to have. It broke my heart, hearing them cry for something I couldn't give them. They didn't know about the betrayal. They didn't know that their father had another child with their aunt, or that our entire family had conspired to hide it from me. All they knew was that their lives had been turned upside down. But I couldn't go back. I couldn't let them see me fall apart. So I put on a brave face for them. Every morning I woke up, got them ready for school, packed their lunches, and tried to create some sense of normalcy. I did everything I could to make it seem like we were going to be okay. But inside, I was broken. I found a small job at a local shop, just enough to get by. It wasn't anything like the life I had before, but it paid the bills. I kept my head down, focused on my kids, and tried not to think about the past. But every time I looked at Chukwudi's empty bed, I was reminded of the family I had left behind. I missed them, even though they had hurt me. I missed the life we had before the lies tore everything apart. There were days when I questioned my decision. Days when I wondered if I had done the right thing by leaving. Should I have stayed and tried to forgive them? Should I have tried to rebuild my marriage for the sake of my kids? But every time I thought about forgiving them, the pain of the betrayal came rushing back. I couldn't forgive them. I just couldn't. I lived like that for years, just me and the kids. We had our routines, school, work, homework, bedtime. We got by, but I wouldn't say we were happy. I was still carrying the weight of the betrayal with me every day, and it affected everything I did. I couldn't trust anyone. I kept everyone at arm's length, too scared to let anyone get close because once you've been betrayed like that, you never really heal. But then, I didn't want to live like this forever. I stayed seeing a therapist, and in almost all the sections, forgiveness was preached. Forgiving my parents for their part in the deception was perhaps the most difficult. They had raised me, loved me, and yet they had been complicit in the lie that shattered my world. I spent many sleepless nights going over every conversation, every family gathering, wondering how they could have kept such a terrible secret from me. It felt like a betrayal of the deepest kind, and for a long time, I couldn't imagine ever speaking to them again. But something my therapist said kept nagging at me. Forgiveness isn't for them, she told me during one of our sessions. It's for you. It's the only way to truly move forward. I resisted that idea at first. I didn't want to forgive them. I didn't think they deserved it. But the more I held on to the anger, the more I realized it was only hurting me. It was keeping me trapped in the past, in a cycle of pain that I couldn't escape.
So, I started to let go, little by little. I didn't reach out to them immediately. I wasn't ready for that. But I stopped replaying the betrayal in my mind. I stopped feeding the anger and resentment. And with every day that passed, I felt a little bit lighter. As for my sister, well, that was a different story. She had been at the center of everything, the one who had carried my husband's child, the one who had moved into my home and pretended everything was fine. I didn't know if I could ever forgive her completely, but I did know that holding on to the hatred was hurting me more than it was hurting her. One day, after months of avoiding the thought of her, I found myself staring at a picture of the two of us as children. We were smiling, arms around each other, innocent and carefree. Looking at that picture, I realized something that shocked me. I missed her. Not the woman who had betrayed me, but the sister I had grown up with, the girl who had been my closest friend. I would never forget what she had done, and I didn't know if we could ever have a relationship again. But I didn't hate her anymore. I just felt sad. Sad for the loss of what could have been. Sad for the years we could have spent together as sisters, as family. That sadness replaced the anger, and slowly, I began to feel a sense of peace. The peace came, too, with my children. Watching them grow, thrive, and laugh again gave me hope. They had been through so much, but they were resilient. They taught me more about forgiveness than anyone else. They still loved their father, even after everything, and they never once blamed me for the changes in our lives. They just wanted to be happy, to live without the weight of the past. One day, when Afani asked me if we could visit his father, I froze. For so long, I had kept them apart. I didn't want them to see him, didn't want them to be reminded of the life we had left behind. But looking at my son's hopeful face, I realized that keeping them from their father was wrong. He had hurt me, yes, but he was still their father, and they had a right to that relationship. So, I agreed. We met at a park, neutral ground. It was the first time I had seen him in years, and I was surprised at how different he looked. He seemed older, more tired. There was a sadness in his eyes that hadn't been there before. But when he saw the kids, his face lit up, and for a moment, I was reminded of the man I had once loved. Watching them together, I felt a strange mix of emotions. There was no love left between us, but there was a shared history, a bond that would never fully break. He had betrayed me in the worst way, but he was still the father of my children, and for their sake, I knew I had to let go of the bitterness. We spoke briefly, mostly about the kids. He apologized again, but this time, I didn't feel the sharp sting of his words. I simply nodded, accepting that what was done. There was no going back, but there was a way forward, separately, but with respect for the shared love we had for our children. After that, things got a little easier. The kids began visiting him on weekends, and I was okay with that. I didn't feel the same anger or pain when they talked about their time with him. Instead, I felt grateful that they still had their father in their lives, that they could hold on to that piece of their family, even if it wasn't whole. Thank you for sparing your time to listen to my story. I don't know if it's worth learning anything from, but I feel okay and better, finally being able to share.